Nick Delehanty, you're very welcome back to Counterpoint. This is our second interview. I didn't think I'd be talking to you again so soon, but after getting 1 million views on your X post the other day in connection with extraordinary additional story now in the whole area of the IPAS centres, I just want to start there. Just give us the essence of what you've uncovered, and then we can pick away at the detail and then the implications of it.
It's really just another example of how fast and loose the government are playing with taxpayers' money in this asylum scheme. And the case that I've uncovered is just a tale of complete oversight, mismanagement, lack of due diligence, no KYC, corporate governance, all thrown out the window at every single level. This is one of the most shocking cases I have ever come across. And
you've called it a slumdog asylum millionaire. I mean, that really got the attention.
So, Slumdog Asylum Millionaire. So what happened here? So basically, an Indian man who was living in an asylum accommodation set up a company and got awarded millions of euros worth of state contracts to provide more emergency accommodation. And he got these contracts while also being a director and shareholder of several other companies that are currently in tax default. They have commercial judgments to revenue to the tune of over 150 grand. Like, this is honestly I the minute I saw this company, it just jumped out at me. I was like, whoa, there's something completely bizarre here. So the question is, how is this person able to set up a company while living in asylum accommodation, get loans from millions of euros worth of loans, get a contract with the government, and then go off and provide the asylum accommodation? So this company is currently active, like they're providing accommodation as we speak to several hundred people.
So this is Moshin Mazur Hospitality Limited, and this guy's living in an apartment in Davis Street in Mallow, just to bring it down to brass tacks for people listening in.
So this company, Moshin Mazur Hospitality Limited, where I came across it was that they bought Hearn's Hotel in Clonmel. Now, Hearn's Hotel is also the biggest nightclub kind of in Clonmel. Mulcahy's on the side of it.
And your family originally from that, or in and around that area?
That's where I'm from. I would have had several family events, confirmations, community, different things in that hotel, and nights out in the bar beside it. Everyone knows the place. So this hotel, Hearn's, got shut down and became an asylum centre a few months ago, maybe last year. And I looked at it. I didn't look at the structure behind it until about a month ago, and because I was curious, I was like, who actually owns this? And then once, I started pulling on the thread, I realized, wow, this is easily one of the most bizarre, unorthodox setups of a company that's in this.
Let's go through that. But Nick, just for people who don't know Clonmel very well and don't know the building very well, how big or small a building are we talking about here?
This is Hearn's Hotel. It's your standard old school type of hotel on the main street of Clonmel. So I don't know how many rooms are in it. There's probably 20 to 40.
20 to 25 bedrooms, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's not a brand new, big, massive hotel out in the country. It's a town centre hotel with a pub out the back. But it would have been, created a lot of jobs. It's been in the town for years. And for whatever reason, it closed down and got sold to these guys to become an asylum centre. Like many things, it's becoming an asylum centre is way more profitable than being a normal business, because the contracts are guaranteed. The rooms are always full, and the state is now your customer. So this company, anyway, have been doing this. They've been running Hearn's since the start of last year, and so they've had contracts with the Department of Children to do this since Q1 2024, and in Q1 last year they made like 25 grand in that year. So they were a very small time player. But by Q3, they were making over 900 grand. So, that's like a 3,000% increase in the space of a few months. So like these guys are adding properties very, very fast. And they've bought other properties in different towns around Clonmel and Cork and places like that. But one of the interesting things is their most recent property they've bought, and I put this up online, is actually is actually a mansion, like a gem country house that probably has the capacity to house a lot of people, but it's got a swimming pool, a sauna, a gym, car spaces. This is like a millionaire's mansion. And like, surely they're not turning this into asylum accommodation. And it's like, are they buying it for another purpose? It would be a travesty if this place became an asylum center.
No, this is Shippool Lodge in Shannon, a very swanky part of West Cork on the banks of the Bandon.
Yeah,
Shannon House was there as well, and so this was on the market for over $1 million, with a swimming pool and big 4 bedrooms and fantastic finish. I mean, really jaw dropping stuff. But
yeah.
But just this company, Moshin Mazur Hospitality Limited, just go back a second if I can. I mean, you must have been gobsmacked when you ran across it. I mean, you're looking at it, because I had a look at it in preparation for this meeting, and here's this guy, Sarabit Singh, with 20% of the company, and his address is he's as you found him, he's in an asylum apartment in Mallow. So he's an asylum resident, and the rest of it owned by Isabella
Blush.
Blush, Bluszcs. Now that's not an Indian surname. That looks Eastern European to me.
So on the registers, they give their nationalities. So Mr. Singh is down as Indian nationality, and Miss Blush is down as Polish. But the interesting thing is, and the company secretary is Hamid Manzoor Butt. And notice his middle name is Manzoor. So the company's really named after him, and he gives his home address as the same as Miss Blush. So they're obviously living together, whether they're married or whatever, I don't know. But they give the same address. So
and their address is in Kinsale, for those that are interested in Brown's Mill, Kinsale.
So and I know nothing about that address. But the interesting address here is Mr. Singh's. So he gives his address as 6 Davis Lane apartments on Davis Street in Mallow. And when you do a quick search of what this is, you've quickly come across a HECRA report, an inspection report as an IPAS center. So you're like, wait a second, these Davis Lane apartments are an IPAS center. And then you go and search again. Well, maybe his one isn't part of it. But then you keep searching and you find, emails from the inspection reports saying that, no, we need to change the fire alarm in number 6. And number 6 number 6, Davis Lane, his registered address under company law, you must, as a director, give your home registered address. Okay, that's company law requirement. And he gives his one as an apartment, an asylum apartment. So that's just bonkers.
Absolutely, but he's not. You found then that he was a director of 3 other companies. Can we just maybe move on to those? Just clip along for people, because it would be jaw dropping for a lot of people who haven't watched you so far on X.
He's a director of 7 other companies about, and some of them have massive debts or commercial judgments to revenue. And one of them,
he's a very busy fella with lots of companies and some of them don't pay tax.
Yeah, exactly, and he's living in asylum accommodation. And one of them is Apache Pizza. So, and I think that's the one that owes the most. The Apache owes 140 grand itself. And then there's another that it's called the Cork Posh Company, and that owes about 11k. And I don't know
why is Apache Pizza ringing bells for me?
Yeah, so this is, we get into it then. It's like Apache Pizza. I had done another thread and post on X the week before about this other guy, this Irishman, Donald O'Brien, who used to run Apache Pizzas and now has a string of over 170 properties across Cork and Tipperary and Limerick. And he used to be, I call him the Apache Pizza Mogul of Munster. So the fact that this guy is now running, has history with Apache Pizza is like, this is very close. So, but then, so on one of the most recent companies this man set up, he gives a different home address. And this time he gives his home address as 68 Thomas Street in Mallow, which is around the corner from the other one. But when you Google or look up what that address is, you find that address is owned by another company called CRM Properties, which is owned by this Apache Pizza Mogul of Munster. So which address is this man currently living at? Both are registered asylum centers, but one happens to be owned by this Apache Pizza Mogul. So there's something going on here. I try to qualify it sometimes. You've heard of the GPA brats. Like we're in Guinness Peak Aviation,
Yeah.
learned how to set up leasing companies. Was it that in Apache Pizza, they all learned how to set up asylum centers? Like, did someone crack the code? I don't know.
But this CRM, do you see, just CRM, just take a pause there. Do you see the CRM company that Donald O'Brien has morphed into from his retail Apache Pizza days? How many properties are we talking about, and how much money are we talking about gone into these centres?
I did a full list of his companies that he has mortgages on. He's charges on based on company data, and it looks like he has over 170, maybe 200 properties, and that includes like full apartment blocks, lots of kind of low grade kind of housing, let's call it, houses in the center of towns that are probably going cheap, and he's just hoovered them all up. And
he's built up this empire over what period of time? Roughly 4 years?
Yeah, so the first company he set up was about, I think, 2022 or 20, yeah, around that. So only in the matter of years. And
so he's been on an absolute sprint.
No, he's on Entrepreneur of the Year.
Wow. And when you then, where is the finance coming from for all of this? Let's leave aside Sarabhat Singh for a second as just a quite extraordinary situation that somebody who's an asylum seeker is actually engaged in companies that are actually running and owning these properties. But this particular CRM company, is there a connection in terms of the finance between all the operations?
Yeah. So all of the companies that CRM, the Apache Pizza Mogul of Munster, when he started off, he got all his financing from a non-regulated bank, which are termed shadow banks, called Novellus, right? But since in the year last year, over the course of 2024, all of those loans, or the majority of them, got reassigned. So he remortgaged his whole portfolio basically one by one, and he remortgaged them under Realm. Realm Finance. Realm stands for Real Estate Loan Management or something like that. And that's another shadow bank. So these are non-regulated lenders. Like another word for a non-regulated lender is a loan shark. But these guys, they're not doing anything illegal. Very important to say that.
Yeah.
Nothing illegal. But in the terms of national policy, allowing this to happen, just especially in the space of asylum where it's government contracts, this is very shady.
Well, potentially, I mean, they could argue that shadow banking now has become a mainstream source of finance. It's just that people don't know these organizations because they're not out in the open, regulated as normal deposit-taking institutions like banks. But I mean, they are providing credit quite clearly.
Yeah, but like, let me be clear. Like, the market needs credit. People need money, and that's fine. Like, I'm pro lending money. I'm not against that. But the problem here is that it's a bit of a hack, because they've realized that they can get these unlimited contracts with the Department of Children to house asylum seekers. There's no end to the amount of people that want to seek asylum, so they can just keep getting loans and build. Like, this is how it's grown so quickly. Now,
so the point here really then, just Nick, is it's due diligence, really. I think that's where you're getting to, is it? That this is no way to be going about managing taxpayers' money and properties, at least properties. This is just, there's no due diligence here. I mean, how could you have somebody who's in an asylum property, an asylum resident,
Yeah.
engaged in multiple companies that are engaged in the same business.
Yeah.
And now we have a shadow bank, remortgaging to another shadow bank. Where's the money coming from? What's the outside source of it? Who are we dealing with? None of these questions. I mean, it seems to me to mimic the way we're engaged with just, people call it open borders. I'm quite happy calling it that myself, even though technically that's not quite true. But I mean, it just seems to be out of control. I mean, that's the sense that I'm getting from this.
Yeah, no, it's completely out of control. There are no limits to anything that's going on. There's no barriers to entry here. It's very, it's completely open. Now, I agree, open board is probably not the right terminology, but in effect, that's what's happening. And like the incentives here, when you have an Indian man living in an asylum center, running the asylum, it creates an incentive for him to create channels back to India and get more, bring more people in, because the more people come, the better for him. And like, it's worth noting that the other director, Miss Bluch, her partner who lives, he's a Pakistani national. So like so there's an
this is Hamid Mazur Butt.
Yeah. So he's an important character in all this, because he has sued. There's been a court case that was reported in the news, and he has sued Donald O'Brien over some dispute. So they're all connected. This is definitely
So that's very interesting. So there's so there's a legal case connecting some of these parties together, which is okay, which is one of the partners to, he's company secretary of Mr. Singh's company, Mashin Mazur Hospitality Limited. Let's just call it MMH Limited.
Yeah.
And separately, he's in a legal dispute with
after him,
Donald O'Brien's company.
Yeah. There's a court case involving both of them over some payments of an asylum center in Cavan somewhere. And this guy, Mr. Boot himself, has commercial judgments worth over 35 grand on two other companies. So it seems to be a play of, there's something called a Phoenix scheme. I'm not sure if you've heard this, but it's basically when you have a small kind of cash trading company and you pump it for a year or two, and then you close it down in the morning without paying any tax, and you walk away, and then you restart a new company the next day, and you just write off that tax, and the revenue, you let the tax man come for it. Now, I'm not accusing anyone of doing that. I'm just saying that that's a scheme that Revenue have said is very problematic, and Revenue find it very difficult to actually get this money back. But the reason I'm so animated about all this is important to just to tell people why I'm animated. I am a small business owner. I pay all my VAT every month. It cripples me. I'm a renter. I cannot even get a mortgage to buy a house from an actual bank that's allowed give mortgages, retail mortgages. So like, while I'm the busiest fool in Ireland, working my ass off, generating hundreds of thousands a year for the tax man, not being able to actually get on with life, and these guys are ripping off the taxpayer. But excuse me, I'm actually going to call it out and say this is complete and utter bullshit.
Yeah. So there's a failure here of any kind of control, certainly in this example, any kind of control or due diligence, because otherwise this couldn't happen. But what I found interesting as well was that I had a little look into Novelist Finance. It's owned by William McManus with an address in Bramley. So it's a UK company that owns the Irish company, and it's there's a lot of growth in debt there over the last few years. Huge sums of money involved. The Irish company itself has a lot of assets, but it has a lot of liabilities as well. It seems that there was just an explosion in leverage or lending over the last number of years, which is understandable, but it's coming in from the outside. And this company then that you mentioned, that Novelist Finance Limited, seems to have sold its debt to, which is perfectly normal, by the way, activity in the market. Realm Finance, is that an Irish company or another UK company, or where's it based?
Realm Finance could be registered in the UK. I'm not sure. It's either the Irish, but it's run by Irish guys, ex-Anglo lads.
Ex-Anglo finance guys, but it's registered in the UK.
It could be. It could be in New York.
Okay.
You might have a few offices, but yeah, the guys who set that up are ex-Anglo executives. And again, like, it's important to note, like, this transaction that we're talking about are probably just small parts of their overall portfolio.
Yeah.
But they should be doing the due diligence. Like, people, there needs to be liquidity in markets. I'm not saying all this, but these particular transactions in the asylum space, if you like, this is a warning shot to anyone getting involved in asylum. People are watching. Like, unless you have everything perfect, you're going to get called out, because this is very controversial stuff.
And let's just go back though from okay, so we're in here to a sliver, right? It's a little snapshot of something a much bigger beast, and you're after finding failure of due diligence. I mean, it's the only way of describing it. Let's just use those words, because it's mild and it's a reasonable statement to make given the facts that you've uncovered. But let's just go back a second. Walk us through, like, in the last government, this under the Minister of the current Green leader, Roderick O'Gorman, money was transferred as a kind of a temporary budget through the Department of Disability and Children, as I remember from our first discussion. How many billions were involved? How much money overall has the Irish taxpayer pumped into bypass centres and all associated properties?
So, since the start of this government, the budget of the Department of Children started out at €1 billion. And now, in 2025, it's up to, when you include everything, about €10 billion. And that's an annual spend. So it's 10 billion being dedicated to this stuff in 2025. The majority of that, it's the Department of Children, Disability, Equality, and Youth. The majority of that goes to immigration and integration. And they brought out a figure just this week saying that €1 billion a year gets spent on asylum accommodation. And I'm like, it's way more than that. Like, if you're carving out maybe just strictly accommodation, maybe you can get away with saying it's $1 billion. But when you add on security, food, services, everything else that goes with it, like, it's multiples of billions. And you can pair it up against how much we spend on defense, on the guards, on education. Like, this is an enormous cost.
Yeah. So in round figures, what do you think it looks like this year? What's it feel like to you? Because you've had your nose in the data. You must have a sense of how much is going into this.
Yeah, the department as a whole, I'm literally reading it here, has been allocated 8.1 billion for 2025. And that doesn't include actually a contingency fund that is held back. And then they break it down into percentages of where that 8.1 gets carved up. But over 50% of it goes to directly IPAS and emergency accommodation.
Yeah.
And see, they blur the lines. They say, oh, well, that's Ukrainian and that's IPAS.
Yeah.
But you got to just chuck it all into one, because on the ground, one place might have been Ukrainian a few months ago, but if the Ukrainian people have gone home, it just swaps pretty quickly. There's just the rapid rate at what this industry has grown at over the last 4 years. You couldn't tell Elon Musk or Sam Altman to spend €8 billion efficiently in the space of 12 months. They'd struggle. They wouldn't know. It's very difficult to put that amount of money to work efficiently. Never mind giving it to Roderick O'Gorman and some civil servants. And this is just complete and utter waste.
Well, there's two remarkable things here strike me. The first thing is that, given the scale of money, the scale of billing, the scale of accommodation, juxtapositioned to the complete lockout of the market for young people trying to get into the market as Irish, homogenous Irish citizens, is absolutely outrageously frustrating for them. I know I have children who are young adults, so I know what it's like. I'm watching it firsthand. And so are an awful lot of people my age. They know exactly what's going on. And it's deeply frustrating when you have hundreds of people turning out looking at a small stock of new properties coming on the market, and they're queuing at 4 or 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning just to try and get a sniff in the door. And they're turning up and they're listening to an interview like this. And they're saying, what the hell is going on in our country? What is going on? This is just madness. And the statements then that somehow this is not having an effect that's not having a spillover effect into the normal housing market and the availability to Irish children, adult children. I mean, that's just a lie. I mean, what it is being peddled all the time.
You're like, some people just are so afraid of the truth. They really are. Like, two things can be true at once. There is a major incompetency in building new houses, but the housing stock we do have is being competed for by people that are coming here. Like that, those things are undeniable. Like, if you can't admit that, then I'm sorry, you have the problem. But one of the things, like, there's so many of these new houses being built are actually being bought by housing bodies, like Clúid and one bodies like these. And one thing to note, and we don't have the statistics on it, is how much, like, where are all these social houses? Who's getting them? And there was a councillor in Dublin there recently wanted this data, and he was like, "Can we do a poll? Can we get this data?" And they shut it down because they thought it was racist. We can't be getting this kind of data. I was like, but like, what's interesting here is we're talking about emergency accommodation, but when you actually talk about homeless accommodation, that's the new spillover. That is it. They released a statistic that like 50% or 40% of people turning up for homeless accommodation are coming from IPAS centres. So the homeless accommodation and the IPAS centre, it's getting very tricky to see where one starts and the other one ends.
Yeah, it's becoming a blob.
Yeah, it's all accommodate, like, so, and then social housing is just another, like, anything with a roof on it is fair game for this whole system.
But you know what? It's also absolutely extraordinary. I just want to ask you, if you could just answer just the questions pretty directly. And they're easy questions for you, but I'm just trying to get it across to the audience, right? So, when I first interviewed you, which was towards the end of last year, and run up to the general election, you sat in the studio that we had set up in Boswell's Hotel, and you were you just nailed, you kicked it, you actually knocked it out of the park, in my opinion. About what was going on through Roderick O'Gorman's budget and how it was, what your findings were. And I was quite amazed that I was just listening to this for the first time, because there wasn't a word of this in the mainstream media. And I was waiting for the coverage to start. It didn't happen. No, this time around, let me just ask you a few direct questions. You've just talked about this on Twitter and you got over a million views. Can I ask you, did any senior politician, government minister, or any heavyweight politician in the opposition, like Sinn Féin or any of those, have any of those people been in touch with you?
One TD and one councillor, a couple of councillors have.
But any of the leaders? I'm talking about not heavyweights. Okay, so you're getting a few inquiries at councillor level, right? Yeah. Which is grassroots. So I'd expect that, because that's where the IPAS centres are.
Yeah.
Has any editor of the Irish Times, the Irish Independent, the Irish Examiner, News Talk, RTE, Primetime Investigates, and the list goes on, has anybody picked up the phone and said, "Nick, we need to talk to you"? No. And have you been contacted by any member of the NGOs that are circling around this whole area? Has any leader of an NGO in the area been in touch with you?
No, they might have blocked me.
No. The answer is no, isn't it? I mean, I keep trying to get this point across to people regularly, audiences as well as on social media, Nick. There is no journalism left in Ireland when it comes to taking on any of the kind of narrative which is contrary to the establishment's or the state's interest. It's non-existent. The editors don't want to touch it, which is why you're just proving the case to me. That's why I was so interested in talking to you as well. You're just being ignored. I mean, in other words, you represent the Irish people as far as I'm concerned, because you're digging into stuff at your own expense. You're doing it forensically. You're pretty accurate in all your facts from what I can see. And nobody's interested in engaging on the material. Nobody. Anybody in a senior media position in Ireland or in a position to influence the media. Nobody.
No, and we can get into why the reasons are. There's probably a good few different reasons, but the media, I don't know if they're scared. I don't know if they're paid off. I don't know if they've got other agendas. There are some newspapers that are covering this relatively well. It's important. Obviously, Gript do a great job.
Well, I wouldn't describe them as mainstream media. They are doing a great job. Yeah,
with Gript, but the Business Post do a lot of good work in the iPass stuff, and Daniel Murray and Illiam Woods and a few others. Then that's probably the Currency have kind of started doing one or two bits, one very good in-depth one, but not enough. Like if you're an investigative journalist and you're looking to make a name for yourself, like this is just cannon fodder. And it's in a way, them not looking at it has been great for me, because I'm the only one, one of very few actually doing it. There's other accounts online doing it, don't get me wrong, on socials doing great jobs. But it is, you can really just stand out. Now, it's a huge personal risk to do it, because, as you say, you can be ostracized a bit. But like what we've learned from the States, what's gone on in the States, eventually the truth wins out. And there's been people for years calling out the reckless spending that was going on at USAID. I don't know if you follow a guy called
I have been very closely.
Yeah. And this guy Mike Benz has been calling out for years, and he describes it as like the first 5 years nobody listened to him, and now he's doing victory laps. So eventually, I know the facts. The facts are right. I will stick to the truth. Once you stick to the truth, you can't go wrong.
Well, I mean, look, the bottom line is that the Irish audience is basically an audio audience, and the actual national news agenda is set in the RTE's radio bunker early in the morning. What it says in the newspapers, it drives all through all the radio stations, the Irish Times, the Examiner, and the Independent. That's where it happens. I mean, Gript are fantastic, so are the Currency, and you're correct about the Sunday Business Post, but they're all on the outer orbit. There's none of the inner orbit, mainstream, conventional, old legacy media showing any interest whatsoever in this material, despite the billions involved and the clear sloppiness. And that's the mildest word you could possibly use. But I just find it extraordinary that there you are, paddling your own canoe, taking the risks. You get 1 million viewers. 1 million. There's very, very few times in a year that anybody tweeting anything in the little old Republic of Ireland would get over 1 million views. You might get it if you were in the USA, and you obviously because of the scale. But like 1 million, sure, population is a little bit over 5.5 million. This is a huge amount.
Yeah.
Nobody picks up the phone. Nobody picks up the goddamn phone to the goddamn person doing the goddamn research, to try and get this information across to the Irish people. I know what's going on, but I still find it outrageous. Makes my blood boil, because what are they doing? What are they doing editing? What's their role here? Because it's not acting on behalf of the Irish people and holding a light up to government. That's what it's not.
Exactly. Like there's no accountability in anything. Like, even like look at the bike shed and the wall, the wall that was built. No accountability. Not one person. Not one name. Was given. And it's the same. There is a rot. But I will say that in the last couple of weeks, people, attitudes are changing. Like I can feel it. Attitudes change. People want Doge, like Sinn Féin are calling for Doge that's it. But it's funny, they came out and called for it on the OPW side, but they didn't mention the iPass stuff because they just can't handle that. They think it's too hot a potato. But it's sentiment is changing, and at least we were here first. We can say, listen, we've been banging on about this for quite a while now. And it might take a year, it might take 10 years, but it's changing, and we just got to keep pushing.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Nick, we'll be talking again at some stage in the future. I know it, because I know that what you've just stumbled across is the tip of a very large problem, and even within the framework you've given it, it's just jaw dropping. But I mean, if you've run across that just because you took an interest in a hotel that you knew when you were a kid, that's how you were drawn into it. Then what else is out there what else is unknown? The unknown unknowns. We don't know because there is no audit. There is no accountability. It's right across, by the way, public services. There is no accountability for anything. And that's why we never get anything done. Because it's a protected class, and that needs to change. We need a meritocracy. We could go talking about that all night. But you're definitely correct about there's a big movement of change coming out of the United States across the North Atlantic, and Ireland will be swept into that. There's no way back to where we've come from, which is wokeism. That's all dying now, and something else is going to replace it. But I mean, the Irish establishment are not engaging here. No. They're not even scratching their heads, wondering what's going on. They're behaving like sticking their heads in the ground, ostriches. Like that's how they're behaving.
It's so funny. If you wanted to get into government, it's like the first party to actively de-woke and race to the center, or you don't have to go right. You just have to go common sense center or whatever wins. They win. That's what people want. And they're just all so afraid to actually do it. They won't change. They cannot change.
They're being conditioned by the cancel culture too, I mean, look, there'll be an awful lot of more discussions about this. Nick Delehanty, you had a go at becoming a TD in the recent year. You did very well. I mean, if that's what you want to do, you'll certainly be getting my support in terms of interviewing you whenever I can to shine a light on the stuff that you're trying to get out there, out into the public. So look, I'm not a representative for the Irish people either, but I'm doing my best in my own way to try and put the spotlight on stuff. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all those people who can say it to you personally. All of those people who watch this and say that's exactly what I wanted to say myself. So on behalf of all those people, I want to say thank you for what you're doing. Please keep doing it. Please be careful as you're doing it for obvious reasons. But you're doing the right thing for the Irish people, and that's the most important thing you can do, in my opinion, as a person, as a citizen in Ireland. You're doing what you're supposed to do, what you were put here to do. So thanks for that.
And you too. Thank you.
Yeah.